Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Ablan.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This episode of the Queen City Music Podcast is sponsored by Middle Sea Jazz, Charlotte's premier jazz club located at 300 South Brevard Street in Uptown Charlotte. Stop in for Thursday night jazz jams, gospel Sundays every third Sunday of the month, or bi-weekly Wednesdays for Remember Wednesdays. But if you prefer, stay in for the evening and watch their Saturday night live stream, where you'll have access to the best performances Middle Sea Jazz has to offer. And if you want the VIP treatment, get a Baby Grand membership, where life takes you to a higher note. Tickets are now available for Delfeo Marsalis and the Uptown Jazz Orchestra on June 10th, Lau Tizer featuring Karen Briggs on June 11th, Jakeem Joyner on June 12th, and Carla Harris with the Joel Altman Trio on June 18th. And please welcome our newest sponsor, Midwood Guitar Studio, Charlotte, North Carolina's own boutique guitar shop located in Plaza Midwood. Midwood Guitar Studio not only has the finest selection in boutique guitars, but familiar names like Fender, Martin, Taylor, Two Rock, and many others. Whether it's a guitar, bass, amp, effects pedal, or a much-needed accessory, the knowledgeable and friendly staff at Midwood Guitar Studio will help guide you in the right direction for your next purchase. And for all your guitar repair needs, Midwood Guitar Studio now has a luthier on staff. Visit their website at midwoodguitarstudio.com or stop in to see their unique shop at 1517 Central Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted to remind listeners that my recent release, You and Me, is currently available on all streaming platforms. Also, there are lyric videos available for several of the songs that you can view on my YouTube page. Please like and subscribe if you're so inclined. Also, if you'd like to learn more about me and all the things that I'm up to, head over to my website at MatthewAblan.com. There'll be a link in the show notes to both my YouTube channel and website to make it easy for you. This month on episode 57 of the QCMP, I'm speaking with singer and pianist Colby Dobbs. If you haven't heard of Colby, he performs as both a solo artist and with his band, the Colby Dobbs Band. And he's earned himself a reputation for being one of the most talented, polished, and unique-sounding musicians in the Charlotte area. Colby Dobbs, welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast.
What's happening?
So good to have you, man. I'm sorry it took me so long to get you on.
Bad. Well, better late than never, right?
So fill me in, Colby. Are you originally from the Charlotte area?
Yeah, originally I'm from Waxhaw. It's a little
okay.
town south of Charlotte.
Not so little anymore.
Not
It's
so little
really
anymore.
Getting mobbed down there.
Yeah, it's a different town than it was when I was a kid, for sure.
So what's your musical background, Colby?
Well, I didn't start playing piano until I was 18 and out of high school. But I guess I started singing, I guess I probably would have been about 12. And I tried to audition for my middle school's chorus. Mm-hmm. And if you had gotten kicked out of school or in any sort of trouble, they wouldn't let you be in the chorus. It was kind of like an extracurricular activity that was sort of a, privilege. And so, I was a kid that was kind of in trouble. So I couldn't do it. So until I got to high school, I couldn't sing in the choir. And then I auditioned for ninth grade choir, and I got in, and I took chamber every semester. So I was in choir every day in high school.
Did that keep you out of trouble?
Kind of. But it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. And, it was good. And I still carry, I guess, some of those things that I learned there today to this kind of singing, which is different. But
because I always think for me when I was younger, I mean, I could have probably gotten a lot more trouble than I did, but right. I mean, I was playing guitar all the time and being involved with music, so it kept me out of a lot of other nonsense, right. I think. Yeah,
I didn't start playing and writing till I was out of high school, and I didn't go to college right out of high school, mm-hmm. and I kind of got bored at the time. You could play poker online, and you could make money at it.
Okay,
right? You could cash out, and so that's what I did.
You play poker online?
Oh yeah, I played poker online to make some money. I was still living at home with my parents, you know, and working little jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
But I got bored, and I think the first piano I got, I saw it in the classifieds, and it was just like free upright piano. And so me and like 4 buddies went and got it. And I didn't tell my parents I was going to get it. It just showed up on a trailer. It was this big, it was like a 1911 huge upright piano.
Can I keep this, folks?
Yeah, I was there. They were like, what is that? I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to put it in my room. That was what I said. I said, you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to put it in my room. And there was no way it was, because we had a little ranch house, and it wouldn't even fit like back the hallway to where you could like position it to go in the door. So it lived in the living room for probably 3 years, and I never tuned it or anything like that. And it was just giant and probably sounded awful, and it played bad, but it was enough for me to have something to play.
Right.
And I ended up, after I bought my first Fender Rhodes, I took that piano apart and burned it, set it on fire.
Why? Just
well, I knew I couldn't sell it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, this thing's not worth anything to anybody.
Right.
And I was just like, you know, and it needed to get out of my parents' living room. And I was talking to my dad, and I was like, man, let's just take it apart and burn it in the backyard. And he's like, man, that sounds great. So we did it. We took the thing completely apart.
So what about the soundboard? Was that metal or was it wood?
Yeah, it was metal.
Okay.
Yeah. And it sat behind the garage at my parents' house for years and years and years. And then I don't know and I'll tell you what, here's what happened. We burned it too, and all the strings snapped on it because of the heat. And then after it all cooled down, we took the frame and we set it back behind the garage, and it stayed there for many years. And I don't remember what happened to it, but
could have been a nice piece of lawn art.
Right? Yeah. Somebody today probably would have really liked that. But yeah, the piano was kind of useless to me, and I got what I needed out of it and learned enough to play on it. And
so that I was going to ask the question, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the singing or the piano playing?
Yeah, the singing came first.
Okay.
But, you know, I never really liked singing like in front, you know, it was just, I always felt awkward. Mm-hmm. So the piano was almost kind of a way to like hide behind something and do it. So and it was weird because I couldn't play and sing at the same time for what seemed like a long time.
Okay.
And I would try it and I couldn't put it all together. And then one day it just clicked. It was just like, you know, it was weird. It was just like one day it just happened and I could do it. It was like, oh, that's cool. And I couldn't do it well, but I could at least do it.
So I got to ask you this question because as a guitar player who sings as well, there's some things that I can't play and sing at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Like I find it very difficult. I can't play this rhythm. I can't do this finger picking thing. And I play with my friend John, and I'm like, he's like, are you going to sing it or am I? I'm like, you're going to have to sing this because I can't play the guitar part.
Right.
Is that the same for you? Are there parts that you can't play and sing at the same time?
The only one that I've really found, which if you're a piano player is kind of a problem, is the "Don't Stop Believin'" thing.
Okay. Because
the way that those two parts work, I mean, it's hard to even play that part together.
Yeah.
It's just a very everybody has something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my thing. But that's a song that everybody wants to hear at every wedding all the time. So so it's always, you know, all the bass players in town that I work with, they all know that we come in on the top of that tune. Bass player comes in on the top because it just starts with the piano. It's all piano, you know. The Jonathan Cain thing, and I can't play that part, the two parts together. I can play them close,
right?
I can't quite play them together. And then singing on top of that, it's like, so I just always play the right hand. I cheat. Okay, I'm a cheater.
That's okay.
I cheat, and that's how I do it. But you know, I will say now, this is recently. This is probably like 2 weeks ago. I almost played those parts right together. Because every now and then I'll try it. I'll just try to do it.
Well, Jonathan Caine's not singing it either.
Oh, that's true, right? Yeah, I mean,
he's just playing the piano.
There is that, but that's the one. That's the one that I can think of. That's the most classic case of that.
I wonder. It makes me wonder if a lot of musicians who sing and play at the same time, if they have any issue with any of the things, because there's always an odd rhythm going on, and then the vocal sits on top of it. And you're like, that I can't get those two things to match up.
You know, like I guess if there was one more other weird one, so the end part of "You Are the Sunshine of My Life," it kind of goes into the like samba thing at the end,
right?
That's kind of strange to do and sing, but I can do it. But it doesn't in my. I'm still having to kind of think about it a little bit,
right?
Which I don't want to do. But yeah, I mean, other than that, now I'm not saying I play everything correct, either. You know, like sometimes you find workarounds for things that are really hard. But that's the one off the top of my head. Those two examples.
Well, I think as a musician, you have to find some workarounds sometimes when you can't do something at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm just going to do the best I can, whether I have to drop out some notes, like you're saying, I kind of cheat on the piano part, or I'll cheat on the guitar part to get it to whatever, if it works. Because I think most time when somebody's listening to you play something, their ear anyway, they've heard the song. If it's a cover song, of course, their ear is filling in parts anyway that you don't even realize that they're filling in. And they might not even be listening to the piano or the guitar part. They're just hearing the vocal in their head.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's most people, I think.
Yeah. It's weird though. Like you do your own versions of these tunes for so long that you almost forget that like if you're leaving stuff out after a while, like it's like subconscious.
This is the way I've done it.
This is just
the way the song should go.
This is the way that we've done it forever, or this is the way that you do it. And it just becomes the way that it is. So
I think every musician has that. You've been doing the song. This is the way I do it. I don't play this chord on this section. I do it like this, even though, this is the way they do it over there.
Yeah. Right.
So you come up with your own version.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm curious, man. You've got a fantastic voice. You're not like somebody with me, some gravel in their voice. So you can hit those high notes fantastically. When do you feel you came into your own singing, where you felt comfortable with your own voice?
Really? Yeah. Probably in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Wow.
I sang for a long time, and thought that I was doing a good job. And then I would listen back to it and go, man, that sucked. That's really bad. Or, like my intonation wasn't where I wanted it to be, or, it wasn't consistent, or, I mean, a lot of things. But I guess I would say I really learned how to have to do it a certain way, probably right before we took a year off for the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then even when we came back last year, it took me months to get the stamina back. Mm-hmm. And, you're trying to remember muscle memory things, your breathing has to kind of be a certain way in order to sort of self-preserve from night to night to night to night.
Right.
You don't notice little things maybe until like day 10 of like a 10-day run. And then it's like, oh man, why is my voice tired? And it's like, oh, well, I'm not watching how I'm breathing, or I'm not, or, our choir teacher used to call it the tenor stretch, where you're kind of reaching up for the note with your neck, and you do that stuff just subconsciously, and over time it does wear you down. So, it took me a long time. But at this point I feel pretty good about, I still try to get better all the time, obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms of, am I happy with my consistency? Am I happy with how I'm, how it's sounding night to night? Yeah, that's probably only been in the last couple years.
I think that's a thing. If you sing, you have to become comfortable with at a certain point your abilities and your limitations.
Oh, right.
Like I know when I'm singing, I'm not hitting high notes. Like I'm dropping it down a key or two. You know, if I know there's a note in a song that I'm not going to be able to hit, man, it's just gotta. But that becomes part of who you are, you know, as a player and how you do things.
Yep.
And most people don't realize if you sing, it's an instrument.
Oh no, it totally is.
And it takes a lot of thought going into it. It's not, you just don't get out there and start singing and it come out incredible.
And it's really one of the only instruments that changes every day. Every day, you know, for me, I have something different every day. So I may have, even if, like, let's say I can hit the same notes night to night, I may be able to hit that high F better one night than the next night. And you'll find out really quick what you've got early in a gig, you know, and you just kind of work with what you got every night.
Yeah, that is true.
So, but yeah, there's definitely, there's nights, like, you know, I'd like to think I'm more consistent now than I've been. But, you know, there's still, like, you can tell, like, if you've done, like, a gig where you couldn't hear yourself real well.
Yeah.
You know, even if you don't realize it during the gig that maybe you're singing a little harder than you think you are, I guess, you know, you might notice it the next day that, okay, I sang kind of hard last night and I can feel it today.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So just that kind of stuff. But yeah, it took a long time to come into my own. It took a long time, long time.
Do you consider yourself primarily a vocalist who plays piano, or do you consider yourself a piano player who plays vocal, who sings?
You know, I don't really.
Don't think about it?
I don't think about it. Just a musician. Yeah, I've never really thought about it. I think people, I guess, you know, maybe I think about myself as a piano player, but I think people think probably about me as a singer who plays piano. And maybe that's the right way to think about it.
Right.
But, cause I guess I did sing first, but piano, they're both challenging.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
Like singing and playing are both, you know, like I still want to get better all the time, you know, so it's like there, you know, I'm still trying to stretch as much as I can, and you know, like, you know, in terms of trying new things and taking chances, and sometimes it sucks, and sometimes, you know, it's like, oh man, cool, we can do that now, and so I think, you know, the playing part, the singing part has always come, I guess, easier than the playing part. I remember having some woman, she watched us. We were at the Beckler, and she watched us for like 2 hours. And she came up to me as soon as the gig was over, and she goes, "Man, you never taken any lessons, have you?" I said, "No,
for piano."
Yeah. And I said, "No, I haven't." She said, "Yeah, I can just tell by the way that you play that you just never." You just, because she's like, it took piano lessons, you know, my whole childhood.
Was she a piano teacher?
She wasn't a teacher, but she had taken a lot of lessons. And, you know, so maybe that lack of that growing up, you know, like if I had gotten in a Hannon book when I was a kid, or something where I really learned proper technique, would make some things easier now. But, you know, I just got to roll with what I got.
Man, it's incredible that you got so good without the lessons. I mean, I just know when I'm the type of person, like, I need somebody to show me. I'm not going to I can't watch YouTube and figure stuff out. Like,
right.
Oh, I mean, now at this point, at my ability level, I could. But when I was younger, I need somebody to be like, "Oh, no, adjust your hand, do this, switch this, do that."
Right.
And then it's like, oh, now it makes sense, you know? But to do it all without?
Well, you know, a lot of it was the way that I taught myself to play was just, I learned songs that I knew.
Yeah.
You know, and I would sit down and learn the chords. And so, like, some of these shapes, you can kind of, you know, I guess if you're thinking about it, like, to me, it was all math. That's how I thought about it, because I learned how to count first. So it's like, if a 13th chord is really a 6th an octave up.
Right.
Like, or my, or whatever. I mean, I guess that's like, but that's in my mind. That's how I thought about it. You just sitting there counting your intervals, And so that being the case, I learned how to play some of my chords, I guess, one way. And then later I learned, now I think about everything as notes. I don't think about it as we're playing, this is C, I think about, well, C's got C, E, and G in it, and I can play it this way, or, but like when you start, you don't think about inversions. I'm thinking about, that's how I play C, and I would play C with like my thumb and my index finger and my middle finger, and I was like, oh, this is so cool, and it was probably the totally wrong way to do it, or whatever, but
it works.
But it worked, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did.
I tell you what, man, God bless you on piano, because playing guitar all these years, I have struggled to even like play basic piano, and I just found it awkward.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I feel the same way about guitar. I can't play anything on really any other instrument at all except piano. That's it.
See, I took lessons on piano, and it was always the breaking of the wrists.
Right.
Always, I would finish a half-hour practice, and I would be in pain.
Shot.
Like,
right.
Dang. Because playing guitar, for all the years I played, I was taught to keep your wrists straight.
Right.
And all of a sudden in piano, no, you got to crack your wrists when you're playing. Like, oh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. I learned that lesson the hard way too, because when I first started playing full time, I had a lot of pain because my technique was worse than it is even now. And I remember, finally, like I got on Facebook, or I was talking to somebody, I might have been talking to Mark Hoffman. Okay. And Mark Hoffman's been a piano player forever and ever and ever. I was like, man, my hands, every time, I'm having a lot of pain in my hands. My hands are a wreck. And he's like, well, how do you sit? What's your positioning like? And I mean, even adjusting where I sat on the piano and like adjusting my height, how tall I sat made like all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Not that that's still technically probably correct, but it's a way that worked for me to do it, and not be in pain. And, fortunately, knock on wood, I haven't had any hand issues. I do have some elbow issues from time to time, but, not hand like carpal tunnel issues. But I feel bad for guitar players, man. Like I've known a bunch of guys that have went through carpal tunnel issues and wrist issues from playing guitar because you're just sitting there. I mean, like you said, I guess the proper technique would be to try to keep the hand straight.
Yeah.
And, if you've ever played with somebody that's had really bad carpal tunnel where it's just not fun for them to play.
Yeah.
Like their whole thing goes to sleep and it's just bad. They can't feel what they're doing.
Well, I mean, for me, I had just years of classical playing and training, and that was just kind of like, it really drilled into you how important technique was for playing, because you're not going to last playing the way you do. Yep. The thing for me is, I always notice it with bass players. Do you ever see those bass players, they play and their wrist their right hand wrist, if their fingering wrist is bent extremely to an extreme angle and they're playing with their fingers, I always think, man, they are just going to F that hand up.
Oh yeah.
At some point.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's not, there used to be a guy, and he died a few years ago, named Tuff Blanton. He was a bass player in town forever. And, I played with him and Donnie Marshall and Bobby Donaldson at Lucky Lou's on Tuesday nights for a few years. And Tuff had gotten in an accident and had, I guess, severed the nerves like in his shoulder. And he had to totally relearn how to play because he couldn't feel anything. I think it was in his fretting hand. Mm-hmm. And Rick Blackwell taught Tuff how to like make notes without having to really like apply a bunch of pressure.
Yeah.
And totally relearned how to play, and you would have never known the guy couldn't feel anything he was playing. I mean, for like probably the last 20 years that he played. And I mean, I played with him every week for years, and it was like, I would have no idea. This guy's not feeling anything he's playing at all. And you think about these guys that have like something like that, or carpal tunnel, where they just don't feel anything that they're doing. It's just like not.
Oh, wow.
And you're losing like grip strength, something like, you're losing the ability to like make clean shapes. And yeah, it's just, that technique, if you're going to play a lot, it's very important at some point to like find the right kind of thing that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it with guitar players much. I have heard about it with vocalists when they get to that, I don't want to say professional level. Let's just say, somebody on a really high performing level, let's say a Pink or somebody like that,
right?
Where they're out there, they get these classical coaches because they may not have come up in that, with that vocal training.
Right.
And they need to learn how to use their vocal cords. Otherwise, they're not going to have them very long.
Yep. I used to do backline work, and we used to, for Backline Pro here in Charlotte, and we'd go out and backline all big concerts and stuff. And I was backline tech for them for a few years. And they sent me to do Boys to Men with the North Carolina Symphony. It was them and a 64-piece orchestra.
Wow, okay.
Right? And the lead guy for Boys to Men had vocal cord surgery probably, 10, 15 years ago or something like that. And I never talked to the artists. Like I was just happy to be a fly on the wall around like all these people that I'd grown up listening to. I was like, man, this is great. But I went and listened to them warm up with the symphony for like an hour. It was at Durham Performing Arts Center, and I sat up in the top of the theater and listened, and it was just unbelievable because my first cassette as a kid was Boys to Men 2.
The guys are fantastic singers.
Unbelievable. And they sounded amazing. And I'm like, and this guy's had, vocal cord surgery, and I'm a singer, And so and he was warming up backstage, and he was, he's doing like all these, and he would just walk, and he was doing this thing, and after he got done warming up, I was like, hey man, I just got to ask you, how do you keep your voice in shape? Cause they had a Vegas residency. They may still have one. I'm not sure, but they were doing like 180 dates a year. And that stuff that they're singing is hard.
Right.
Right. Yeah, there's no phone in it then. Mm-hmm. So, and he said, man, when I don't have a gig, I shut up. I don't talk. And and he was real, nice about it. He wasn't, I don't think he meant it as, hey kid, get away from me, But,
yeah.
But it was like
vocal rest's a thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially, when you're doing it like that, yeah. But I was so impressed with the quality of his voice, like, and a lot of people now, vocal cord surgery has come such a long way. A lot of people have had it. I mean, Adele's had it. John Mayer's had it. A lot of people have had it, and they come back and they're better than they were because you're getting rid of a bunch of that, scar tissue or whatever it is, nodes. But it was just incredible to hear it in person, like somebody that had that done and was just crushing it, man. Like, sounded amazing, and so I thought that was super cool. But yeah, I mean, like, all those guys have coaches on the road. I mean, they do. Like, even like, like I remember, here, and I think I heard like Michael McDonald had like a vocal coach, like when he was with the Doobie Brothers, like all those guys had vocal coaches. It's like, man, like,
I heard James Hetfield from Metallica had a vocal coach.
Yeah.
And you're not thinking he's belting high notes. He's like, he had to, got to learn how to keep your voice.
Oh, absolutely. Especially doing what they're doing too. That's hard.
Even those folks who do like death metal. And see some of the girls, they have to learn how to do that that guttural thing that they do.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it's my style of music, but I mean, you hear about this and you read about it.
I couldn't imagine doing that every night and being able to do it every night. Like, that's a skill. Yeah. That's a huge skill to be able to do that.
I mean, just honestly, just keeping yourself in shape as a musician with everything, your voice, your hands. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. People might not think about it like being an athlete, but it is in a similar vein. You've got to keep your hands and your body in good shape.
Oh yeah. And I mean, just thinking about like on our level too, as guys that, we have to go out, we have to schlep our own gear around, and it's like, if you're doing 5 load ins a week and, it's a very physical job, man. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I played yesterday at hotel uptown, and had to set up for a big corporate thing. And I mean, you're loading in gear, enough for 300 people to hear what you're doing in a big ballroom, and you got to get, and that's before you play a note.
Yeah.
And you're having to settle it. So, it's a physical job.
Yeah. Well, if you're not fortunate to have like a bunch of roadies with you,
right,
doing it all for you,
Well, spoiler alert, I'm not.
You got
I
the Rolling Stones while you walk on stage and everything's there for you.
I am the roadie.
Yeah. People don't get that, man.
Yeah.
It's not that glamorous.
No, it's not. Man, yeah, but it's worth it. But it's all worth it. It's all to say it's all worth it.
Hey, man, not to change the subject, but want to change things up a little bit. So I got in touch with you via Chris Garges.
Yep.
So how is it that you come to know Chris? How did you get to know him?
I was actually looking at recording studios, and I was a poor kid,
right?
And I wanted to do some real recording
Mm-hmm.
In a real studio, and I found Chris's website, and I remember seeing what is a very fair rate for what he does, and but back then, as a poor kid who was making $7.25 an hour, or whatever I was making at the time, I was like, gosh, man, if I could ever afford that, I would love to go record with this guy.
Right.
And I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, I saw you, came on your website, and I'm looking to kind of do some recording, do a record. I was in the middle of doing my first record, and I needed to just go find a different place to kind of finish it. So I reached out to Chris. He was super cool. At the time, his studio was in Gastonia. He was at the old house.
Right.
And so I went out, and I actually had a mutual friend with Chris, a guy that he was working there with him named Daniel Grimmett, who I think's in Nashville now.
No, Daniel Grimmett's in town.
Is he in town?
Yeah,
he moved back. He did move back.
He does dark label music. He's actually been on. He's been on podcast.
I knew that.
Nice fella.
Now that you mention it, I do know that he moved, but he'd been gone for a long time. But he was
in LA for a while.
He was working with Chris, and so I was like, I'd love to go, check out Chris's space. So I emailed Chris, and I was like, I know Daniel, and I'd love to just come chat, and check out this place. He's like, oh yeah, man, come on out, and he was out in Gastonia. It was an hour, but we hit it off right away. I mean, he was, super knowledgeable, super smart, and really good at his job, and really knew what he was doing. He had a great setup, and I was like, man, I would love to come out here and do some work. I just gotta find money, because like I said, I was a broke kid.
Yeah,
so it was like, so I did. I found some money, and I went out and did, I think, 3 songs off of that first, or 4 off that first record with him. And
the first record being The Great Unknown.
The Great Unknown, yep. And then, I was like, when we got ready to start on this one that we're still working on, I was like, I'm definitely gonna do it with Chris. But yeah, I mean, so I guess I'm trying to think. The first time that I met Chris would have been 2009, maybe, or something like that.
Well, I think you said, the 2000, The Great Unknown came out in 2012, right?
Right. We worked on it for what we thought was a long time then, but this record has proven to take a lot. This record that is almost finished has proven to take a lot longer than that.
So we're talking about it. Can we take a listen to the track from The Great
Sure.
Unknown?
Yeah.
Which is the title track?
The title track, yep.
Awesome. All right. This is the Colby Dobbs Band. The Great Unknown from The Great Unknown.
get out of town to this place we know. We'll escape to the great unknown.
Colby, man, I love that track.
Thank you.
So it's got a really strong Steely vibe to it.
Yeah.
So were you writing all the parts and giving to other players to play, or were you getting, you gave them a structure and been like, here's the chord changes, bass player come up with what you need to do?
Yeah, it was, I didn't really micromanage too much. I probably, at that point in my life, I probably did a little more micromanaging than I do now.
Right.
But I had the chart written for it, or just, basic chords.
Yeah.
And I knew the horn line that I wanted over the head, I guess what we'd call the head section. And
yeah, I think I asked you about that earlier, that you had written the horn section arrangement.
Yeah, just in terms of, I think there's a lead and a harmony part on there, but I had the lead line. I knew the little lead thing that I wanted. And so we went in. We actually we'd cut a demo of that at another studio, and then ended up cutting the one that ended up on the record at Old House with Chris. But the Fender Rhodes on it there's a video on YouTube. You can find me when I was a lot smaller. But we used that was a Fender Rhodes to a Leslie.
Okay.
To do that, which was super cool. And I remember those sessions because it was, we were all there. We all made the trip to Gastonia, and I feel like we cut the drums, bass, and keyboards. Usually that's how it went. We cut them all in the same day, and then we might have overdubbed the guitar tracks.
Were there some local players on the recording?
Yeah. It was, at the time, it was myself and Matt Stibber, guitar player in town, and Dan Lawler. He ended up mixing that record.
Okay.
But he played drums on it. And Davidson Tindry, who's out in Dallas now, he's a bass player for us for a long time. But yeah, it came together pretty quick. I mean, I'm more, especially with bass stuff, in terms of I kind of wanted it to go with the kick,
right?
And sort of less is more kind of thing,
right.
And I know David had grown up listening to a bunch of Phil Lesh and Grateful Dead, which is not, let's go with the kick drum kind of stuff. It was all very lead bass kind of stuff,
right?
So I think we found a compromise with a lot of that stuff.
So are you surprised, just out of curiosity, when you write a song and you're the piano player, vocalist, and you know what it sounded like, are you surprised when other people come in and do their little contributions, the bass line, the drums? Does it ever surprise you at the end when you finally hear the whole thing and you're like, oh, wow.
Oh,
I didn't know it was going to sound like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of,
give an imagination for it, but.
Well, that's, it's kind of the beauty of collaborating.
Yeah.
Right. And the musical experience in general is, making music with others. I mean, to me, that's one of the most special parts about it.
Right.
So, especially, I've really gotten better about it over the years, but I really don't like to tell people what to play.
Right.
It's just sort of here's the chords, and do what you hear on it.
Yeah, but ultimately, if you're the songwriter per se, people are going to ask you,
right?
If they're session players playing with you, they're going to say, "What are you looking for? What do you want?" Because I know, when I did my recording, I had a piano player come in. One of the piano players, he's like, "What are you looking for?" And he kind of messed around for a little bit, and I finally was just like, "Yeah, why don't you stick to the melody that I wrote that I sent you?
Right,
and fiddle with that,
right?
I mean, it just kind of worked. It was
yeah. A lot of, I think, maybe the way I write kind of lends itself to doing some kind of having some tendencies. But it's also hiring, and I don't want to say hire, but,
getting the right musicians?
That record. Yeah. Right. That record was different, because I had these songs And I'd taken him into an engineer, and he's like, "Oh, I know these guys that would be great to play on this stuff." And they found the guys to play on it. And then, we ended up playing we all played together for 3 or 4 years in that configuration with that band.
Right.
And when we kind of made some personnel adjustments, it was sort of like, well, who would sound great playing this stuff? And so, the last, I guess, 10 years almost now, we've had kind of the same group of guys, and they all kind of approach music, they all kind of hear music
differently.
Yeah, but it's like they know what, I guess, they play the right stuff.
Okay.
They play the right stuff. There's rarely like that's just totally not at all what I would do.
They're just in the same headspace.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
That's interesting. So this album, The Great Unknown, came out in 2012.
Yeah.
Any plans for a follow-up?
Yep, it's almost done. It's very, very close. And I've said that for a bunch of years, but it is really very close now. The only thing that I'm waiting on at this point is we have some horn charts that are being done, some arrangements by Brad Wilcox, who's a great arranger, super talented. And he's doing all the horn arrangements and hiring the players to play the stuff. Yeah. And then he's sending me the tracks back, and I'll mix them. So we're kind of waiting on that. And then a lot of the tracking's just done. And, once I get kind of that stuff back, and it's just editing and mixing and kind of
the time-consuming stuff.
The time, at this point, I guess I've been working on that since February. Like getting the, opening the sessions up and mixing the session, kind of getting everything at a point. I have to hear stuff like, kind of the way that I sort of hear it sonically. Like I kind of have to get it in a certain spot first before I can really, I guess, make some tough decisions on, okay, this tune needs a B3 here, or we need a little like hunt and peck guitar in this section to kind of move it along. But if I don't like what I'm hearing, I kind of have to get it in a spot sonically with some mixing where it's like, which is kind of not the way that a lot of people like to do it. It's like, well, let's get all of our tracking done first,
right? And
then it's like, well, because, I get it, like you may change your mind on some stuff, even song, but I kind of need to hear it a certain way. And, or at least in my head, I feel like I need to hear it a certain way.
Well, you brought one of the tracks and I loved it. It's called Lawn Friends. Do you have a title for the album, or is it just this one?
So Lawn Friends is a different project.
Oh, okay.
Lawn Friends is a project that me and a buddy of mine, Mike Ramsey, started over COVID. And because we were bored, we didn't have careers anymore, we thought. And so we thought, man, if our careers are over, let's just do what we want,
Right.
So fortunately our careers aren't over, and everything came back, and everybody's working. That's great. But
so did you guys do an album, or is it just a couple of singles? Or?
No, there's a full album. There's it's part of a murder mystery noir.
Upstairs in a room I know. There doesn't seem to be much going on. I try to turn the handle, but it's locked. Well, what do we do now? Let's go hide by the pool, don't get caught.
We wrote Act 1 in 2000. What year is it? We wrote Act 1 in 2020, and I guess released it. I mean, I guess it would have been 2021.
So wait a second. You say it's part of a murder mystery. Is it a musical album murder mystery?
It's yes. So it's every song. It takes place at a hotel.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of characters at the hotel. And every song moves the story along.
Mm-hmm.
It's, and it's told from somebody's perspective.
That's really interesting.
But the Lawn Friends, originally when Mike kind of called me with the idea, because I was planning on not doing anything. I hadn't had a break in years, and I was like, well, I mean, I'm forced to not do anything because I went from having... So this is March. I probably had 200 and some odd gigs on the books to like 10 in 2 days. It was like, we're not going to work, and we don't know how long we're not going to work. And so I remember sitting in my living room, and I remember thinking, well, if I don't have a career to come back to, if this was it, it's been great. I've done a bunch of stuff I wanted to do. Like, this is cool. It sucks, but I can't help it. I didn't do this. And so I'm going to take some time to do what I want to do for a little bit. And it was in March. Mike called me in end of April, 2020. He said, man, I've got this idea. Hear me out. He said, what if we did a record where all of the songs take place at a hotel, and everybody in the different rooms has a different story. That was the original idea, and I was like, "Man, great!" Because I love to write about bad people, or just any kind of silly,
Yeah.
So I pumped out a couple songs, literally in like 2 or 3 days. The Lawn Friends track, it was one of them. And there were, I guess, 2 other ones. I think I wrote them in like 3 or 4 days. Like once I had the idea, it was like bam, bam, bam. Because I had nothing to do.
Right.
When I had to go play a gig, my headspace could just be totally dedicated to, let me write for this thing. So wrote those. And then Mike kind of wanted to morph it more into an actual concept, like record with an actual story and a storyline. And so we wrote Act 1. We put out Act 1. We're working on Act 2 now.
Oh, wow.
And Act 2 we're almost done with it. And we have a Patreon, www.patreon.com/lawnfriends.
Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, please do. And
so is that the title of the story?
The title of the story is Siesta Sands. It's because that's the hotel.
Yeah.
So we found out there is an actual Siesta Sands, but we literally sat around and thought, what's the dumbest name for a hotel? What's like the cheesiest name for a hotel? Siesta Sands. It sounds like one of those hotels at the beach, because originally it was like, well, we just went way down the rabbit hole. How silly can we make this? And the Lawn Friends, original, well, and I guess they still are, but the Lawn Friends are these 2 kids whose sets of parents are both staying in the same hotel room at the same hotel and are kind of kicking the kids out kind of on their own, if you get my drift. So they're sort of there, left to their devices, and their parents are sort of doing their own thing,
Right.
So the Lawn Friends are there, and there's a murder happening, and the Lawn Friends are sort of, they know what's going on.
Right.
But nobody's paying attention to them.
How old are the kids supposed to be?
Like 8.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they're really young kids. Yeah, they're just young kids that are just sort of around the hotel and just nobody's watching them, and they're kind of like doing whatever they want. So anyway, we wrote Act 1, got it done, getting ready to finish Act 2. Super cool. We used a ton of cool players on the record because at the time nobody was working, so it was like we would email like the drummer for John Mayer, Aaron Sterling, right? We emailed him like, "Hey man, got this track. We think you'd sound great on it." People that we really, really liked their playing. And some of them emailed us back, and some of us decided to do it, and some of them didn't email us back,
right?
And that's fine. And we used a lot of local players, too, that we loved. And so it was just a big collaborative effort remotely on everybody's part to kind of make it come together. But the whole thing will be finished towards, I guess, the fall. We will probably release it in the fall, the Act 2. Act 1 is already out. You can find it on Spotify or...
Is it a 2-act?
It's a 2-act.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 2-act musical saga.
Any plans to bring it to the stage?
We've talked about how we might do that. I mean, there is a script. So when we did the Patreon, we sent out trinkets every month. So every month you get a mailer with a trinket, something from the hotel, a postcard written from the perspective of somebody that's there. And, but with the album, there was, and I'm going to forget the actual name. It's the book that has the script in it.
Okay.
And, you actually get the script with the CD in a book.
That's awesome.
So you can read, you can read all the song lyrics, and it kind of, there's artwork, and it kind of develops the story along. But yeah, we had nothing to do over COVID, so we decided to do this, and I didn't think it would last. I mean, I guess we're in the almost year 3 of doing this project, or we're past the year 2 point. So, I didn't think it would last this long, but it's been really great.
Right.
And we're having a great time doing it, but we're going to wrap it up.
Now I got to go check out this project. I didn't even know about it.
It's fun, but that's where Lawn Friends comes from. And Lawn Friends had nothing to, we kind of just worked it in. Lawn Friends, my buddy Mike and I just decided that if we ever had a band together, we would just call it Lawn Friends. And I don't really know why. I think it was because we used to see those things out in people's front yards. There's like little lawn ornaments, you know, and I think we asked one time, we were like, I wonder if these like lawn ornaments are like buddies. Like, do they just become friendly when they're out there? Cause you drive by
all the gnomes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's like, are these all friends, so yes, that's where the name came from. And, we just never expected it to be anything more than a goofy way to pass time during COVID. Now it's turned into this big thing that's been awesome. Queen City Nerve did a story on it.
That's awesome.
That, it's like, this is great, So yeah, it's been cool. But, so there's that. And then we're finishing my band's solo record, and that should be hopefully out by the fall.
Do you have a title for it? The solo record?
We've tossed around a few titles, but we have not committed to one yet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So another aside, I just want to talk to you about some other things too.
Sure.
You play a lot of gigs, and I know that you probably book some of your own gigs through yourself, but you also work with some of the entertainment companies in town, like East Coast Entertainment and Key Signature Online, right?
Yep.
So how's your experience been? Do you like working with the booking agencies? Do they help you
They're great.
Get other kinds of gigs you might not get trying to book yourself?
Absolutely. Yep. Because they're doing a lot of work on the front end, whether it's networking. I mean, they have contacts with, if they're doing it through like, there are members of NACE, National Association of Catering and Events, all the event planners and music agents and vendors. I mean, they kind of all are in the same network.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, if you're an event planner at a hotel, it's like, you have a client that comes in like, oh man, it'd be really nice to have music for this event, and the event planner goes to, Key Signature, cause they know that they put, they've provided them with good clients good entertainment before. And, so they all know each other, and the agents are doing that work, establishing those relationships on the front end, and they've established those relationships for years and years and years. And that's kind of our job as musicians when you're working in that situation. Well, it's always your job to go out and do a great job,
absolutely.
but you're representing them and their relationship with a vendor or a client or whatever. And so, you have to, you go out and, you do the best job you can. You're a representation of them, of the agency,
Mm-hmm.
So, I love working with them. They're great.
Are those mostly solo piano and vocal gigs, or are they gigs that you get for the band?
They can vary. It just depends on what a client wants. And, they know that, we do go out and try to do the best job we can. So, they pitch all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the majority, I guess, of what I do with those agencies, I guess it's probably solo, duo, trio. That's a lot of your work anyway.
Yeah. Do you, you've talked about all the advantages. Is there any disadvantages that you see working with them a little bit?
Not really.
I'm sure they take a cut. So, that's just always it. But you get paid pretty well.
But they deserve that cut because they're doing a lot of work that we don't even know about. Whether it's
building the contacts.
Oh, they're building the contacts. They're going. They're building relationships. They're dealing with the client. There's a bunch of stuff. Things too like you fall under their insurance,
mm-hmm.
right? Like event insurance, where if you go play an event for East Coast Entertainment, they have event insurance or something, and it's in the contract, and you're covered. And if something happened, like drastic,
right.
Whereas if it was just on me on my own, I would have to go. If I played an event, either I have to have a year's coverage worth of event insurance, which a lot of people do anyway.
Yeah.
Or you'd have to go get it per gig, because a lot of places require it, a vendor to have event insurance.
Right.
So you're getting that. There's a lot of things, man. That, there's a lot of advantages. You want to have as many friends as you can.
Oh, of course. Yeah. If that's your day job and your night job.
Yeah.
Being a musician.
And I have a ton of respect for what they do. I've booked gigs before. They're relying on you to do a good job, just like I'm relying on them to do a good job.
Right.
And yes, there's really no disadvantages to at least the people that we have working for us here,
right,
in town. Whether it's for East Coast or for Key Signature or for any agency, they all seem to do they're great at their jobs.
Speaking of which, do you with them, do you book regionally, or do you just mostly around the Charlotte area? Do you out of the area?
I've done regional stuff for them. It depends. Especially the East Coast, they have offices kind of all over.
Okay.
So, you might get a call from an agent in Asheville, or you might get a call. We got a call from an agent in Philadelphia one time to go up there and play a gig.
Nice.
It just depends on. You just never know.
Is that mostly cover gigs?
Oh yeah, it's
okay.
cover gigs. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the average length of time for those gigs? Besides, I forget travel.
You're right.
Is it a 3-hour set? Is it a 4-hour set?
Yeah, it's usually. Yeah, it's usually a 3-hour gig. But,
yeah.
But they're all different.
Right.
Some gigs are an hour.
Right.
And some gigs. There was a piano player in town that used to do like an 8-hour gig at the Ritz-Carlton on Christmas for like a few weeks out of the year during Christmas. You know, and so it could be.
We just want Christmas tunes.
Just want Christmas tunes all day long, and I think he would take a break, every hour, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
you got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Playing those sets.
Yeah. But no, they're great. They're great. There's they're great.
I was just curious because I book, I don't do all the stuff that you do because I have, my day job as a teacher.
Right.
So I'm not trying to book as much time as I can, but I was curious because I've never actually talked to anybody who has worked with an entertainment company.
Right.
And I was always curious, like, how does that all work and how they saw things going through it. So it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. And I don't have like I guess I don't have per se like a band with like some agencies have like bands.
Right.
And these are their bands, like exclusive bands. I don't have anything like that with anybody. I just work freelance. And I mean, I guess, there's advantages and disadvantages, I guess, to that. But, in terms of sort of, again, it's like you want to have as many friends as you can. Yeah. I like to work with everybody. I really do. And I think one thing too is, I might have to go play a gig in Charleston and use a bunch of Charleston players. Yeah. And all the Charleston players might play this exact same songs different than we play them in Charlotte with Charlotte players, or you'd play them in Asheville or Columbia. Every city, and every city kind of has their tunes that they do, right? A lot of them are the same, but they all have a way that they kind of do them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And I like that. I like having I travel around and play different cities and with different players, quite a bit. And the way that different players approach the same tune is like fascinating to me. Like something like Kiss by Prince, it's like, it's a 3-chord tune. It's like, how many ways can you play a 3-chord tune? Well, I mean,
a lot.
There's a lot of different ways. I mean, how many different, like the last NPG horn section that Prince had. A lot of those guys live in Charlotte, and worked on a bunch of gigs with Joey Rayfield and Adrian Crutchfield. Marcus Anderson used to play with him. I think it's how Adrian got the gig. He lives in Durham. But like those guys played the tunes with Prince, right? And so they're playing Prince charts on those Prince tunes, right? Yeah. If you're doing a wedding or something or a big event, and it's funny, like how like things will get adopted like by regionally almost, it's like, so like, let's just say, like if I wasn't from here, if I was from Charleston and I came up here to play with, and I played with those guys and they play that lick like that, right. Like a horn lick or something that's that way, and I went back down to Charleston. Well, I would just mimic, even as like on a keyboard, I would just mimic that lick, and those horn players might like that lick better and they might pick that lick up and that's how they would play it. So there's a lot of that. Like every town kind of does it different.
It's almost like a regional dialect.
Oh, it totally is. It totally is. It's like, there's so many tunes like that people play. Like Valerie, people play Valerie different in different places. Whether they do it kind of laid back or whether they do it more like, I'm bad with beats, but I don't want to say double time. Maybe it is double time, like a double time thing. But yeah, it's cool. But yeah, in terms of working with agencies, there's no real disadvantage to it to me. And I think that they're worth every penny that they get, and because they're doing work that, then I don't really want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they got connections that you also don't have.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And yeah.
And some of those connections might not want to talk to the musician. They don't want. We don't want to deal with you. We just want you to show up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep. We're not going to haggle with you over the rate. We're going to go to a company who hires the musicians.
Right.
We know they got quality musicians with a track record.
Yep.
And this is what they charge. Great. Let's pay them, and then they can pay the musician, and we're done.
Yep. Absolutely. You're right.
Interesting. Hey, so Colby, to wrap things up, what do you got coming up? Anything? Any gigs coming up that we can come see you play?
We do. Myself and Donnie Marshall, John Shaughnessy. We do the Eddie V Steakhouse gig. We do that every Tuesday. And we also do it, me and Donnie and Ryan Soranich, who is the jack of all trades for Brit Floyd. If you're familiar with Brit Floyd, they're big giant Brit Floyd tribute thing, travel all over the world. He's been doing the Mondays with us over there, and then when he can't do it, it can be a number of different bass players that come fill in for us on Mondays. But yeah, that gig's every Monday and Tuesday. It's a fun gig. They treat us great. Food's great. Everything's great. It's kind of a
high-end place.
Yeah, but it's very chill and laid back, and we do a wide variety of stuff. It's not just like we're gonna take a nap lounge music. We do.
What time you guys start and play? 7
to 10.
7 to 10.
Yep.
All right, man. I'm gonna come out in a couple of weeks when I'm out of the school.
Do it.
Summer.
Please do it.
And I can afford to stay up late. Hey man, you teach in the morning. It's like I got to be up at 5. I'm like, I'm not staying out.
How long have you been teaching?
I'm in my 16th, finishing my 16th year, man. Wow. Yeah.
Man.
It's fun. I mean, it's, as I always say, it's my day gig. Like I'm a musician, I'm a music teacher.
Yeah.
And it's my day gig. And well enough being a musician, multiple streams of income.
Oh yeah, right.
And to have something steady that with a pension and benefits for me is
absolutely. Oh yeah.
And I love it. And the kids keep me young, and I've actually become a better musician working, teaching kids stuff. It just like always reviewing the basics. It's always in my head and working with them. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But how do we get in touch with Colby Dobbs? If we want to find out more about Colby Dobbs and all the stuff that you're up to, man, how do we get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at The Real Colby Dobbs, or on Facebook, Colby Dobbs Band. You can come to my house, but I'm not going to give you my address.
And how about if we want to book you for a gig?
You can reach out. You can either reach out to Key Signature Entertainment, East Coast Entertainment, or reach out to me directly.
Okay.
Depending on what it is, yeah.
Just through your website or anything?
Yep, through Instagram or your Facebook Messenger. It's amazing. Or email,
Yeah. Do you have a website?
I don't have a website.
What?
I know. Yeah, I should. But I just don't because so much business just goes through Instagram,
right?
Or Twitter even, or Facebook. Yeah, it's like people get a hold of you. It's amazing how many people, reach out and like message you,
Yeah.
Hey, I saw you here, where are you playing next? Or, hey, we'd like to book you for this thing. Or, hey, I saw you here, want to see if you'd come play our, birthday party or whatever,
Yeah, man.
But it's cool though, man. It's, it's like, it's made it, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine what it was like booking gigs, let's say 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where you're calling people or whether you were taking demo CD or tapes or whatever to places and, hoping they'd call you or hoping they'd listen to it or whatever, now it's just like everybody can just come find you quickly and,
Well, I mean, if the website is not being of use and things are going the way it is, why fix with something that's not broken, man?
I've been fortunate. Now let's not count the website out there. At some point, listen, we may put a budget for that at some point, maybe a line item for that. But
it's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, Colby, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate you coming out and talking today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, bro. Take care. Thanks for listening to the 57th episode of the Queen City Music Podcast, and I hope you'll go back and check out past episodes. You can find the QCMP on all your favorite streaming platforms. As always, if you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out our local partners, Records on the Wall at rexonthewall.com. Reporting from 20XX at reportingfrom20xx.wordpress.com. Queen City Live at Instagram.com/Queen City Live Music. And our newest partner, Charlotte New Music at charlottenewmusic.org. Until next month, be well and stay safe.